Imagine exploring a place where someone was once beaten, tortured, and executed, where lost souls wander the halls terrorizing trespassers, where you can still hear the cries and whispers of the dead. There would be no way I would be able to do that. But if you want to experience that for yourself, just go to an abandoned prison. There are hundreds of them around the world, all with dark and eerie pasts. Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. I'm your host, Lindsay Ivan, and today I'm bringing you the top 10 abandoned prisons that should not be explored. So don't think about going there and exploring them, okay? Don't. Starting off this countdown, we have Eastern State Penitentiary. Built in 1829, Eastern State Penitentiary was known for housing some of the biggest criminals, such as Al Capone. The conditions in this prison weren't the best. Prisoners were kept in complete solitude, seeing nobody else besides the guards. Whenever they would leave their cell, guards would cover their heads so that they couldn't see anyone else and no one could see them. That alone would drive them insane. But they didn't stop there. The guards would often torture the inmates by soaking them in cold water and then letting them dry outside during the winter time. The prison closed in 1971, and now apparently the ghost of the prisoners haunt the walls, seeking revenge on the guards. In our 9th spot, we have Atlanta Prison Farm. The Atlanta Prison Farm, also known as the Honor Farm, first opened its doors in around 1918. The plan for this prison was for criminals to work off their sentences by doing labor work. This was only for the prisoners that were deemed trustworthy enough. In fact, they really believed that this would be a solid plan, so there were hardly any security. However, it didn't turn out to be such a good idea. There were a lot of gangs at this prison, which resulted in a lot of prisoners getting hung and killed. The prison closed its doors in 1995. But in October of 2009, a fire burnt a large section of the prison. Firefighters didn't even care at all. They didn't try to even attempt to extinguish the fire. Now what remains of the prison is badly vandalized, and pictures of the inside show that it's not the safest place to visit. In our 8th spot, we have HM Pentridge Prison. Her Majesty's Prison Pentridge, or HM Prison Pentridge, was an Australian prison established in 1851. Now the problem with this prison was that it was meant to hold 650 prisoners and only 100 guards. But soon the prison became overcrowded with thousands of prisoners. In fact, a large percentage of the prison population died inside the prison. This was due to monthly stabbings, bludgeonings, and bashings. The prison closed on May 1st, 1997 due to a bunch of riots and scandals. But because so many people died there, they actually had to bury them on the prison's ground. Over the years, bones of the prisoners have been found in and around the prison. So I suggest not going there unless you want to stumble upon some human remains. Coming in at number 7, we have Moundsville Prison. Moundsville, West Virginia Penitentiary was built in 1876, and it looks a lot like a medieval fortress. But this prison wasn't designed to hold a lot of inmates. They each were meant to have their own 5-foot by 7-foot cell. That's extremely small. But eventually overcrowding became an issue, and up to 3 inmates were placed in one cell. 2 were on super small bunk beds, while the other slept on a mattress on the floor by the toilet. The conditions weren't the best, that's for sure. Before the prison was abandoned in 1995, a lot of death sentences were carried out there. 85 men were hung and 9 were electrocuted. This prison saw the worst of the worst criminals. One of the more notable inmates was Harry Powers, the Lonely Hearts Killer. He would use newspaper ads to lure lonely women to him, with ads saying that he was looking for love and marriage, but instead he would rob and kill them. Now, Tom Stiles, the caretaker of the penitentiary, said that multiple inmates would complain about the prison being haunted. So even before criminals were killed there, the prison was already haunted by other spirits. Now it's even more haunted with the ghosts of the criminals as well. Making our way down the list at number 6, we have Old Essex County Jail. Located in New Jersey, this jail was built in 1937 and has a very creepy Victorian style to it. Over the time, the prison expanded and had its own cafeteria, hospital, auditorium, and gallows in the yard to hang the murderers. The prison closed in 1970 and now is deemed very unsafe to trespassers. Some of the floors are at risk for caving in at any second. Plus, the walls are now covered in creepy vandalism and graffiti. And inmates' files are now scattered all over the floor of the auditorium, along with empty tear gas containers and shotgun shells. So what really went on in that prison? We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Wyoming Territorial Prison. Built in 1872, this prison is one of the oldest buildings in Wyoming. From 1872 to 1890 it was a federal penitentiary, and from 1890 to 1901 it was a state prison. But this prison faced a lot of issues. The first one being that there were a lot of jailbreaks. Within the first 2 years of operation, out of the 44 prisoners there, 11 of them managed to escape. Then over the course of the next couple of years, they struggled with overcrowding. They also had to deal with a number of ghost fires. Yeah, fires would start out of nowhere in the prison. Over the years, the prison was used less and less, and actually was under capacity. At one point, they only had 3 prisoners. Now, the prison was famous for housing the murderer Julius Greenwald, who is said to haunt the area. In fact, he was known for being really good at rolling cigars. And if you visit the prison today, the faint smell of his cigar smoke will follow you around. Moving on at number 4, we have the Garcia Moreno Prison. Located in Ecuador, this abandoned prison is nightmare fuel. Inside of the prison, there are a bunch of haunting images that the inmates left behind. So to pass time, they would make murals or sketches on the walls. Most of them are pretty dark and gruesome, showcasing their misery from being locked up. So originally this prison was built to only hold 300 inmates, but it reached 8 times its capacity, squeezing inmates inside. They weren't living in the best conditions, and by taking a tour of the area, you can see it for yourself firsthand, if you dare. I don't recommend it. In our 3rd spot, we have Alcatraz. Of course, this is probably one of the most famous prisons in the world. Alcatraz was a maximum security federal prison built from 1910 to 1912. It first served as a prison for military prisoners, but over the years, it was known to be home of the biggest and baddest criminals. It was also known as being an inescapable prison, but the prison closed in 1963 since it was getting too costly to run. Now it's rumored to be very haunted. Apparently, prisoners were often tortured there by guards with chains, knives, and tasers. Lots of prisoners actually died while locked up there. Legend goes that if you visit the prison, you'll be able to hear the sounds of endless weeping and screams. Others have reported hearing music coming from one of the cells, and even got locked in a cell by a trickster ghost. So yeah, definitely do not recommend you visit this prison unless you want to end up behind bars. Literally. Coming in at number 2, we have Port Arthur Prison. Built in 1833, Port Arthur Prison was referred to as Australia's Alcatraz. It was deemed inescapable, and it was known to house only the biggest and baddest criminals. From 1833 to 1853, Port Arthur was a place for convicted British criminals. Rumor has it that these prisoners were psychologically tortured there. It operated under the principle of isolation, silence, and control. As a result, a lot of prisoners were driven mad in solitary confinement. The prison was shut down in 1877, and then in 1895 and 1897, devastating fires destroyed some of the prison. Here's the thing, the prison and the entire land is said to be cursed. In 1997, a man named Martin Bryant killed 35 people and wounded 23 more on the land. This massacre is considered the worst massacre in the modern history of Australia. As a result, the prison and the surrounding area is pretty much abandoned. And in our number 1 spot, we have HOLMESBURG Prison. The HOLMESBURG Prison opened in 1896 and was nicknamed the Terror Dome, and you'll understand why shortly. Tons of very horrific incidents occurred at this prison. From 1938, half of the prisoners went on a hunger strike because of complaints about the food. As punishment, the leaders of the strike were taken to a building that had several cells lined with radiators and steam pipes. The windows and air ducts were closed closed off, and they raised the temperatures in the building to nearly 200 degrees. This happened during an August heat wave. As a result, several of the prisoners died from being boiled alive. Others suffered from horrific burns. But that's not all. One of the prison doctors would conduct unethical experiments on the prisoners, exposing them to herpes, radiation, psychoactive drugs, and more. Then in 1970, a riot took place in the prison. The inmates were armed with meat cleavers, knives, and makeshift pitchforks. They then went around trashing the dining hall and killing each other. Then in 1973, the prison's warden and the deputy were stabbed to death by the inmates. Finally, the prison closed in 1995, and due to its horrific past, no one wants to visit there. And that's all for today's video. Let's move on to our comment shoutout portion. I'll be shouting out comments from my video, Top 10 Scary Government Secrets Leaked on Reddit. Kai Fox commented, at this point of 2020, any secrets from the government doesn't even faze anyone at all. It's true, we've been through so much that it's like the government was doing what? Okay, cool. I'm a science experiment, I'm not actually real? Cool, yeah, sure. The Raptor King of the West commented, this video is gonna get taken down by the government. Honestly, they're probably gonna show up at my house too, and I don't know. Sean Satake commented, it's so refreshing for this channel to finally have a host capable of reading a script and pronouncing common words. She's a keeper. Sean, what you don't see is the takes that I struggle with. Editors, can you put in the little penitentiary thing that happened at the beginning? Starting off this countdown, we have Eastern State Penitentiary. Hate that word, penitentiary.
I think it's penitentiary.
Penitentiary, good one. Built in 1829, Eastern State Penitentiary. Say it again.
Penitentiary.
Penitentiary. Built in 1829, Eastern State Penitentiary. Say it again.
Penitentiary.
Penitentiary. Built in 1829, Eastern State Penitentiary. Can we start again? Penitentiary. What?
What's that?
Okay, what is it?
Penitentiary.
Penitentiary. Built in 1829, Eastern State Penitentiary. 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 There's some words that I honestly cannot pronounce, and you guys call me out for it, but thank you. See, I even pronounced your name wrong. It could be Sean, what'd you say, Shiitake?
Yes.
Like the mushroom?
Maybe.
I don't know. Sorry about that. And that's all the comments I'm showing up for today's video. Make sure to comment something down below for a chance to be featured in my next comment shoutout. And as always, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to Most Amazing Top 10 for more amazing videos. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan, and I'll see ya when I see ya. In our 8th spot, we have HM Pentridge. Now, the prison was famous for housing.